On this episode of Overcome with Justin Wren, it is Nat Rogachevsky.
All I know is that I did not think that not just a good life, but any kind of better life was possible. I just didn't see it getting any better, and I didn't believe it could. I let go just for a second. I just asked somebody for help, someone who'd been there, and there's a lot of great people out there, and you know where to find them. Man, I couldn't ask for anything. I couldn't ask for anything. My cup runneth over, and all I did was get out of my own way just for a second.
Everyone you meet every single day is fighting a battle you may know nothing about. We're all in the process of overcoming. I'm Justin Wren, and my story has been heard by millions of people through my book, my TED Talk, podcast interviews, TV shows, professional fighting, and my foundation, Fight for the Forgotten. I believe we are all overcomers if we choose to overcome. We all have the option. I've been given the opportunity to overcome childhood trauma, sexual abuse, immense bullying, depression, suicidal ideation, substance use disorder, and I am a 2-time suicide survivor. We are here to have conversations with some of the greatest minds of our time. Get ready to be inspired and to receive the tools and game plan to win this fight called life. Thank you for being here, for showing up for yourself. You, me, we have overcome 100% of our darkest days. I'm not done yet, and neither are you. This is your invitation to overcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks, man. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So I'm not going to slaughter your last name.
Yeah, Rogachevsky.
Rogachevsky.
Yeah, there's a V in there, but it's like slick Chevsky.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Nat Rogachevsky.
Yeah.
Right?
Very close.
Very close. Okay.
Yeah.
One more time.
Nat.
Nat.
Easy part. Rogachevsky.
Rogachevsky.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Perfect. Yeah, no,
Perfect?
that was really
Okay.
good.
All right.
That was really good.
Well, I'm really glad you're here.
Thanks, man. It's
I
great
really
to be
am.
here.
Because my first introduction to you,
Yeah.
well, we saw each other last night at Kill
that's right.
Tony.
That's right.
And that's what prompted this podcast.
Yep.
I saw you and I just thought it was a little, maybe God wink from the universe.
Sure.
To be like, man,
Yeah.
I need to have Nat on this show.
I appreciate it, man. It's good to be here.
Yeah. I was so impressed with your first, I think it was, let's see, Kill Tony 528.
Yeah, that
Where-
would be correct.
Hans Kim was I think it was his first time sitting down as a judge.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Big for Hans, too.
Mm-hmm.
It made it a lot. I don't know. I was insanely nervous anyway. But that just like my buddy, who's a comic, was up there as the guest and not like, Joe fucking Rogan.
Right.
It was a little bit easier to
Yeah.
go out and do my thing.
Well, I had a great conversation with Hans last night. I'll get to that because I want to let the listeners know that you just killed it on Kill
Thank
Tony.
you.
But what was so amazing to me, rewatching it, but they're live. I was there with Amy, my friend Brigham, Amanda. I was there with Chris Murphy, one of our
Yep.
friends. And you have only been doing comedy for 6 months at that point.
At that point, yeah.
9 months now. I think it was 3 months ago that it was released.
Yeah,
Says.
I think it was longer than 3 months ago
Okay.
that it came out, because I was looking back at it, and that was probably, if I got here in September, that was like August, and I must have it was probably closer to 8 months, because I'm at 11 now, so I must have flubbed in that interview, because I'm at 11 now. So
11 months.
Yeah.
You haven't even been doing comedy for a year yet.
Yeah, we're coming up on the year,
Wow.
at the end of February, beginning of March.
Your stage presence was incredible. I mean, there was
Thanks,
a guy last night that had 12 years.
Yeah.
12 years of experience, and you are every bit, if not more, confident with your stage presence as
Thank
him.
you, man. Thank you.
Literally. And then what stunk was I went on YouTube to pull up Kill Tony 528, and Amy and I were watching it. We were laughing.
Yeah.
And then whenever you got the big moment,
Yeah.
it goes mute.
I know.
Because of the algorithms or whatever, the copyright.
Yeah, they copyright me.
Yep.
Yeah.
They would have, I guess, struck down the whole episode.
Yeah, that was a bummer, and I wish I had. I'm sure if I scour the web, I'll find a version, because there's someone who downloads everything right away or rips
Right.
something right away. But I wish I had recorded it while I still had, and I actually did record it at some point, because I put it out, somewhere later, and lost that. So,
Wow.
but the singing is right now in the abyss somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, set it up for our listeners. What is the Kill Tony show? How did you
Yeah.
find it? And what's the whole process? Because it's almost like
Yeah.
kind of the American Idol of comedy.
It is. It's a mean American Idol of comedy for sure.
Great.
So Kill Tony's really established itself as an institution within stand-up comedy. We're really lucky to have it in Austin now, but essentially it's a live podcast.
The most popular live podcast
in the world. And it's nothing format wise like what you would consider a traditional podcast, like a conversation. Essentially what it is, it's a show where it's set up with the host, Tony Hinchcliffe, who's a great comic. His producer,
King of roast.
Yeah, he's really top tier roaster.
Guys like what? Snoop Dogg and plenty of others.
Yeah, he's roasted so many people. He's written roasts for like huge celebrities that get invited to do celebrity roast spots and stuff like that. He's a big act. He opens for Rogan all the time, and just a super strong veteran comic anyway. Yeah. So he started the show at the Comedy Store, and essentially it's him up there with his producer and also a comic, Brian Redban, who was the original producer for the Joe Rogan podcast, got it going off the ground. And then a guest who tends to be generally at least an entertainer, but usually like a really established stand-up comic. And they're sitting up there and they pull names out of a bucket that open micers before the show sign up for.
And that line outside, I mean, how many comics sign up for a show, you think? On 50, 100?
Yeah, so like on a low night, like 75.
Wow.
And I've seen like up to 150.
Wow.
Signing up.
And people fly in for it.
Oh, totally.
All around the country.
Totally.
Just hoping that their name gets pulled out of the bucket.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You'll see people who have been fans of the show for so long that like, which is, I think, a little mental. They'll be their first time doing stand-up. They're
ever.
like, this is, so crazy. I've always been a stand-up fan. I feel like I'm really funny, and I just love the Kill Tony show. So you're essentially like subjugating yourself to this torture, which is like if you don't do so good or like you're not as fun in the interview because you're going to get roasted. Like that's a big part of the show.
Right.
Of course, all in good fun, but it's part of it. But I can't imagine. Like the first time I did stand up was in a guy's living room.
Okay.
You know, I mean, it was like
first time on the biggest podcast, live podcast in the world.
Right.
Getting roasted by one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah, it's wild. It's a wild thing. And it's also what makes the show great is anyone can get pulled. So there's, insane people who get pulled. And it's super fun. It's also really funny as a comic to see because, we're all waiting in this bullpen because you're waiting in this little designated area, hoping your name gets called, and everyone's phones are locked up because that's just what they do at that show anyway.
Right. And that's where your notes are normally.
Yeah,
right?
Correct.
Yeah.
A lot of us write them out like for the show and stuff like that. And the energy doesn't really exist anywhere else in the world than this bullpen because it's all these comics and we're trying to keep it jovial. You know what I mean? We're all trying to like riff with each other and like be nice and smooth and relaxed. But you're literally waiting for your name to potentially be called.
Right.
To go perform in front of like on regular, I think it's something like 250,000 people view it live.
Yeah.
Like regularly. And then it can get, into the millions of views if it's a big guest or whatever. So it's just like literally 1 second I'm coming from some open mic down the street at our home club, Creek in the Cave, and now I'm like maybe about to perform in front of like more viewers than people who watch like the Tonight Show now.
Right. Wow.
So it's a crazy energy.
Crazy. Just trying to compare that. I've got a funny story about Brian Redban that even happened last night, but I couldn't imagine being in the back just of a bullpen of fighters. I fight professionally.
Yeah.
And so being in the back, just waiting for your name to get pulled out of a hat, and then you're doing the walkout to the cage, and you're fighting in front of hundreds of thousands or millions of people.
Yeah.
You just have to perform on the spot. I mean, a fighter, you got to be ready. And I guess as a comic, you got to be ready. But that's a crazy concept. I don't think, well, actually back in the day of MMA, they used to have this thing called Toad Holler in Iowa.
Yeah.
People would go to a bar and they'd be drinking, and then you could go basically like pick a fight with someone and you get in the cage and you fight them.
What?
Yeah, that was the early days. That was the early days, like early 2000s.
Yeah.
Toad Holler, a guy named Josh Neer, the dentist, got his nickname the dentist because most guys didn't have mouthpieces they walked around with. So he'd knock all these guys' teeth out. But it was similar. I mean, not similar because it wasn't anything gigantic.
Yeah. Like
this opportunity that you had.
Yeah.
What did that do for you, and how did you go up there so confident? And what was the song that you sang? Because I completely forgot it. Amy and I were like trying to lip read and everything else with it.
So I'll answer the last one first. It was Don't Stop Believing.
Yes. And you got a standing ovation.
Thank you. And it was partially due to the fact that I can sort of sing a little bit. I did.
You can sing.
Thank you. I can like shower sing very well. So like, I mean, especially in this setting, it was pretty good. And I genuinely didn't know the words past like the first few lines. So I improvised and like just made it like a generally silly song about like a guy trying to fuck a girl, I mean, it was like, which I think like it is about. So it's like, and I had a ton of fun with it. And that definitely like propelled my career, especially at this stage. And like, I had just moved to Austin like a month before. Yeah. So it was just like this crazy.
That move paid off, huh?
Oh, big time.
Wow.
Big time. And like I came here to do comedy. It's an amazing comedy scene. It's growing so rapid. It was already great. Mm-hmm. It's been growing so fast, and so many opportunities are rising. And I was fortunate enough that like I had established myself somewhat in like a visit back in May, and like really put myself out there and got myself in touch with a bunch of other comics and bookers and stuff like that. So I'd laid a little bit of a foundation. People knew that I was like at least half funny. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't like completely.
You're real funny, my man.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
And so that was like, there was definitely like, it was going well before. I'm not going to say like nothing was happening, but it's just like, it lights such a spark under your ass, like kind of for everyone to see. And that's really, really cool. And I got, so what it is you do a minute of stand up and then they interview you afterwards about your background and whatever they kind of just, it's almost like improv. They try to keep the ball in the air, make it fun. And that's how I ended up singing. But the highest reward you can get from this show is being invited to do Brian Redban's showcase, The Secret Show.
Yep, The Secret Show. And you got that invitation.
I did. That was crazy.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
They asked you how strong do you feel, or how much time?
Right.
And you said you could do a solid 15 minutes.
Yes.
And so he invited you on the show. That was epic to see live.
Yeah.
It was epic to go back and watch again tonight.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, man. That's a great reward.
It was huge.
Well, real quick, the funny story I shared in the green room last night with Brian Redban was I walked in there, we hugged each other real quick, and I got to see Hans and William, and then Tony and I connected on the balcony, but I sat down with Brian real quick, and we started talking, and I go, do you remember, it was either my first or second time on Rogan's in the old studio. Yeah, these carbonated beverages are making us both burp. So if you hear that, ladies and gentlemen, sorry. Right. Nice ambient noise. But I said that basically I had some pictures to send them from me being in Africa and showing some of the wells being drilled by our team, basically them being able to help themselves, like just equipping them with the tools, educating with the knowledge. And he's like, yeah, I remember that. And he goes, we were live. And I go, yes. And then I read out, oh, is it Brian Redban 1@gmail.com? Hit send. And there's hundreds of thousands of people watching live.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh shit. And Joe his jaw was dropped. And he goes, you're about to have to burn that. Nuke it.
Oh, dude.
And when Joe changes his number, he goes, anyways, he normally says, hey, nuke the old one. And so he's like, nuke it. And Brian was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get so many dick pics. And he did. And we were just rolling laughing. He goes, I forgot about that. You owe me $3 for whatever his Google stuff. And we were cracking up about that. But it's crazy what a live show can do.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's going to be mistakes and there's going to be improvising.
Yeah.
And you did such a good job improvising.
Thank you.
Even why I brought you here tonight was because of your story.
Thank you.
If you wouldn't have shared that part, I wouldn't have come up to you afterwards.
Sure.
I mean, I probably would have, just to say you did it awesome.
Thanks.
But I was in early recovery, and I failed. I failed after that and had to go to treatment. I got out December 23rd of last year, and so, hey, thank you. I'm 103 days sober.
Nice. Super good.
I'm burping too.
Yeah.
As we record this.
Yeah, he's back on the wagon. No.
But, no, whenever you shared, they were like, I forget how they even set it up, but you got to share about being in recovery.
Yeah.
And, they said, what was your last job?
I said drug dealer.
Drug dealer.
Yeah, right.
And I was just like, whoa, that piqued my interest.
Yeah.
And then you went into your story of basically how heroin, and you were selling Molly and all this stuff.
Yeah.
The whole crowd was cheering for you.
Yeah. They went nuts.
They went nuts.
I was like, I used to sell Molly, and they were like, fuck yeah. And they went nuts.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
So everyone loved Molly in there.
Yeah.
And then they started talking about your heroin use, which was what, 5 years?
So I'm coming up on 5 years sober.
5 years sober.
And
how long were you addicted to heroin?
So I was.
We just took a big turn.
No, absolutely. So from like 19 to 25, and the last like 3.5 years of that were heroin. Before that was opiates.
Okay. I was an Oxycontin addict.
It's the best.
Yeah. No hangovers.
Yeah,
right?
it's amazing. Yeah, it's just clean heroin.
Yeah. And it was really hard for me to get off of that.
Of course.
I was on it for 4 months before I got a surgery, and then after the surgery, 2 or 3 months, and then they gave me 5 years of prescriptions.
Yeah.
And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, getting off that. But I really want to highlight your story. Can you take us back to however you want to share it?
Yeah, definitely. So, I just love drugs and alcohol, like from the moment they were exposed to me, like in any capacity. And you hear this talked about in recovery communities all the time, that there's a sensation that you have as an addict or an alcoholic that like people who are just enjoy their booze or like might screw around with a little bit of this or that, they just don't have. So for me, when it was pot first, it was instantly like a problem was solved, like just like a problem of like the deepest nature, you know what I mean? So it's like it's tough to explain for like a general populace, other than if you really like are like screwed like guys like us are, when you are first exposed and continue to be exposed to drugs and alcohol, the feeling is like, now I can operate on like the same plane of existence as the rest of the world.
Wow.
I didn't feel part of the world until drugs and alcohol. And they talk about like this aha moment, like that's it, problem solved completely. And so my progression, I was pretty much a straight A student. I bounced around the suburbs of Boston, but like mostly like really nice areas and stuff. Like upbringing was like fine. You know what I mean? Like nothing special, no like considerable trauma, like whatever. Better story than some, worse story than some. Straight A student, like maybe a little bit of a goof, but like literally like Russian math schools, all these like, I was doing like summer math shit, like just Russian Jew. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause I'm Russian Jewish, and it was just like a thing that
you did Russian math school.
Correct.
Okay.
So
never even heard of that.
So they take like math and science so seriously in the USSR, where my parents were from.
Yeah. I wrestled over there.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what's up. That they put me in these like math schools. So anyway, I excelled significantly as a student, and I started smoking pot when I was 13. And by the time I was 14, I was like at risk of being kicked out of high school.
Wow.
And was my like neighborhood drug dealer. Like just instantly, like as soon as I started smoking, I was like, oh, I'm the weed guy now.
This is it.
It's not just what I do, it's who I am.
Wow.
Like immediately. So that.
You started dealing at what, 13, 14 years old?
Yeah, 14 was like,
wow.
Yeah, maybe 13. And that never like left the picture. That was there to stay immediately. I was like, quick cash. I feel like I'm good at this. When I have a joke, as I say, it's like saying that you're good at selling drugs is like saying that you're good at like receiving blowjobs. You know what I mean? The way you just laid there till you came is
That's great. That's great. I thought I was going to say, do you have this entrepreneurial spirit about you? Like a young age, already a businessman?
Well, like I've never finished getting a blowjob, and the girl's like, that was amazing. You know? It's like, but so I was always selling drugs, and then I like got really into like festival communities and stuff like that, getting into harder drugs pretty quickly, like Did pretty much
like
everything.
Molly, LSD.
Molly, LSD, ketamine, all that, like
ketamine.
all of those like kind of like hippie drugs and stuff like that. And like everything else you can imagine. Literally, I don't like outside of like vague research chemicals, that like if you name it, I've done it by the time I'm like 16 or so. And
You've done everything by the time you're 16.
Right. And the only thing that I hadn't, which ended up being really my drug of choice, were painkillers. Because in my high school, there was a pretty clear path of trouble that it was like, okay, a lot of people take their first Percocet their freshman year. And then by sophomore year, you start to see the signs of like who's in trouble. And by like their junior and senior years, you have like some full-fledged opioid addicts in my town. I'm from Massachusetts, New England, like super ravaged with OxyContin and Percocet and stuff like that. In that sense, but so I just like steered clear of it. Like I was actually afraid of that because I just saw stuff happening to my friends like really quickly. And I don't really know what was like the occasion or what like shifted my thinking into being like, okay, I'm just going to try this out. But I remember somewhere around 18 having like way too much money for an 18-year-old through like selling drugs. I was a high school dropout. I had been sent to, and we could get into this a little more, I've been sent to this like school in Israel that was like,
wow,
like this thing. It was like, you had to apply to go to it. And it was like supposed to be like accelerated, but it was like really strict. And like they had like military based methods because if you complete the program, it's like a 2.5-year program, you become an Israeli citizen and you're going to serve.
Yeah. For 2 years. Right.
And so they like kind of start to lay the groundwork right away. And like all these things that like were programs within it that were like optional become.
You
like,
went there?
Correct.
How long?
I got kicked out in 2 months.
You were an international drug dealer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think I was like,
what were the drugs of choice in Tel Aviv or wherever it was?
Yeah, it was pretty much just like hash that I was smoking.
Yeah.
And I didn't have access to it right away, but like as soon as I got to leave the campus.
The hookah or the shisha?
Yeah, all of it. You know what I mean? And like we weren't even allowed to smoke butts on campus. So I was like, really, I was sneaking that. And then like I wasn't supposed to like have a girlfriend. I did that. I wasn't supposed to get into fights. I did that. You know what I mean? It's like, I was just problematic immediately. And I was super duper. And this was the case from the second I picked up like pot and booze. I was super like anti-authority to like, not even like in that like rebel spirit kind of way. Just like, all right, man, can you like shut up? Like other kids are trying to learn. And I'm just like, fuck you. Like these teachers who just like want to help really. You know what I mean? But of course they were always the problem. But anyway, around 18, I had all this money and I think I was just bored and I was like, I want to see what the fuss is about. And I picked up, some Percocet and did it with my friends. And that was when that true feeling of like, I maybe for the first time in my life believe like I'm okay. Like I'm going to be all right.
Wow.
Because the stuff that you don't recognize when you're that young that I'd been experiencing for the whole time is like, it's just not right. But you don't have to think about it because I'm just like making money. I keep running. There's always some girl around. Like there's always like some crazy, like I used to go music festivals a lot. Like I'm constantly chasing a thing and drugs are all around it all the time.
And you're getting experience after experience.
Yeah.
Where you feel like,
yeah,
something's okay, or like things are happening.
Yeah. I'm like, well, I have this money. So there's that point of validation where like, you can't say I'm not doing well there.
Right.
And it's like girls are around. So I'm like, I feel okay. Like with myself about that. You know what I mean? It's all bullshit. But, meanwhile, my parents like can't sleep at night wondering where I'm at and like this and that. I'm like just neglecting my family and everything, like just not good all around. And I'm like constantly running from like just even like a second, just like alone by myself, God forbid, sober. You know what I mean? Because that's, you'll hear in the recovery communities too, is like the only thing worse than active addiction is sobriety. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like until you found a solution.
You mean, yeah, absolutely. You're right. I mean, I feel that whenever, I don't know. I think with me, sometimes I had so much purpose because I was fortunate enough to find that outlet and my people and this cause that kept me sober for 4 or 5 years.
Sure.
Without a program of recovery, without a 12-step thing, without therapy.
Right.
And once it resurfaced and hit me like a Mack truck.
Yeah.
Almost, well, I don't know that it really snuck up on me, but it felt like it did. Felt like it blindsided me. Because a lot of stuff came up from actually that work or those experiences, some of the worst days of my life over there. And then I didn't know how to deal or cope with that. And I didn't have any coping mechanisms. I didn't have any tools. And so I reverted back to, okay, I don't know what to do with this, but I know getting high will let me escape these feelings, or let me numb, or let me feel good, or let me, it became the solution again.
Yeah. I don't have to be myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Onnit.com/overcome. You know those times when you're so into what you're doing that you can't think about anything else? The days when you finish your work without looking up once? How do you like to feel that kind of focus every single day? Whether I'm training for or in an MMA fight, or if I'm engaged in a new philanthropy project, or sitting down in front of an epic podcast host or guest, I want to get into that flow state faster and stay engaged longer. With Alpha Brain, you can. Its clinically studied nootropic ingredients support memory, mental speed, and flow state, that feeling of being in the zone, so you can be focused and productive anytime. It's a world-renowned nootropic supplement with more than 1 million bottles sold. Why? Because it works. I know it works. I want you to too. With its trademarked ingredient blends, Alpha Brain helps build an environment in which your brain can operate on all cylinders, promoting lasting mental clarity. It also helps your vision too. You can save up to 30% when you try Alpha Brain today. Give yourself the gift of a healthier, higher functioning brain. That's a no-brainer. Try Alpha Brain today. Onnit.com/overcome. But I would say that when I got out of treatment the first time, August of 2020, I didn't really, I mean, people talk in the recovery community, like you said, about like a step one truth and other things like that. I didn't have that. I was like, I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't do that, but I can still do this, and that.
Right.
And this time will be different.
Yeah.
And I was under that guise that, so I was sober for a little while and it was like just white knuckling it.
Yeah.
And that was hard.
Oh, dude.
It was so hard.
I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
Yeah. And I don't think people can understand that don't have the brain you and I have.
Right.
Those similarities. How would you say that or explain it to someone that has no clue what being sober and not in recovery is like being absent of your solution,
right,
or the thing that fixes you,
but
not having other things,
right?
Yeah.
So to first like answer that question, you'd have to paint a picture of like just what drugs and alcohol mean to like the true addict and alcoholic. And a simple way of putting it, and you can break it down a lot of other ways, but it's like, that's our best friend. That's who we go to with our deepest, darkest secrets. That's who we go to when the sun's out, when it's rainy, like no matter what, that's our best buddy. Not just that, but he's always been there. It doesn't matter what my dad said. It doesn't matter what my job said. It doesn't matter what my ex did. Like, my best buddy's always there, and they just want the best for me. You know what I mean?
And it doesn't even matter what you've done while you're with your best buddy.
Right. Doesn't matter.
They're always there.
They're always there.
Unconditional love.
And you have been doing this and living this way for a long time. Usually, by the time you can experience like what you need to get better, right? And so now, to describe like white knuckling and really going dry, as we call it, you just take that best buddy and just remove it and go, all right, keep doing what you were doing. And you're like, how could I, you want me to go to work now? You want me to build a relationship? You know what I mean? You want me to just like, now it's just all good with those same people that I fucked around with, like all along the way, like those people that are closest to me that are the first ones to get hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So true.
So, and what's crazy is the way that real alcoholism works is that while you're in the middle of like it's suffering, it's really suffering, right?
Yeah.
To be without your solution and just have the physical part removed. Nothing's happened for the mental part. Nothing's happened for the spiritual part. And all of these things, like, you got to make it right. You got to figure out why you were there in the first place. You got, like, you know what I mean, to like break down 12-step stuff in kind of a more general way. You have to really like accept the fact of where you were and where you're at and what you are. And you don't do any of that. And now you just have to experience this big, bad, scary world that was what brought you to this best buddy in the first place.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a miserable thing. And I know people who experience it.
Yeah.
And it's tough. I used to be like, that guy's an asshole. But now I'm just like, that's just a fallen brother. You know what I mean? Because when I was first getting sober and like really getting hot about it, because like you start to feel a little bit better and you're like, this is the shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna talk about it all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I'm gonna tell everybody. Like, I see my buddy have like 2 beers, I'm like, dude, you should come to a meeting. You know what I mean? Like, like, you know how it goes, because I've been there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then you're like, I see someone who's like not experiencing like the miracle of like truly having a solution, and I'm like, man, if by just the way I act or like the way I treat people, if that's at all attractive to you, just like hit me up. And that's it. That's the end of the story. I don't need any, like, you know what I mean? It's like totally just like the door stays open no matter what. And it's like, you tell me.
Yeah. I think it's hard seeing some of the guys that I've gone to treatment with that didn't necessarily get it, and go back out.
Yeah, it sucks.
And that's really hard because some are really, really struggling. And and to see them go back to that as their solution, or when we say solution, what does that mean for the average person?
Well, because it's like, so what I started to describe when I'm talking about my background and like the feelings that I had. So when I'm first starting to party, I'm only after the fact, and after getting sober, able to recognize what I was feeling. Because when you're 13, you don't know what like anxiety is. Maybe like 13-year-olds now, because they have all that shit kind of crammed down their throat,
right?
Which is great in certain cases. But when I was 13, I didn't know what anxiety was, or social anxiety was, or like not feeling comfortable with myself was. I just thought I was a freak. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
when I take something physically in, and I don't think I'm a freak anymore, problem solved.
Right.
So it was, and again, that was the solution.
That was the solution, and really the underlying problems
Right.
were like kind of those causes or conditions
Right.
that are like the contributing factors
Right.
to why I use, which is being uncomfortable in my own
Right.
skin, or even just having the brain
Right.
of an addict or alcoholic
Right.
that now doesn't just. One of the things I learned was what was kind of cool was it's not just about pleasure or dopamine.
Yeah.
It's actually about it hijacking your brain and it now becoming the priority.
Yeah.
That can take priority over food, water, shelter, family, the most important relationships.
It's like the and you have such a different perspective on this after experiencing addiction and alcoholism, but like the beginning of Train Spotting, that line where he's like, choose, I'm going to butcher it, but it's this big, great monologue where he's like, choose life, choose a flat screen TV, choose a new girlfriend, choose like X, Y, and Z, choose your flat, choose the belt you wore in the morning, choose that. Why choose all that when you could choose heroin? You know what I mean?
I haven't seen that.
It's an awesome movie. You got to watch it.
I'll go watch it.
And this is like a big, awesome monologue part in the beginning of the movie that's about dope junkies. But essentially, and as a person who hasn't experienced addiction or alcoholism, you might just think that's like tongue-in-cheek and like clever writing. But what he means is the world and being ourselves is so scary and so hard, and there's so much, it's so complicated. Why would I do all that if I could just figure out how to get the next bag? That's been working for me so far, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Until it hasn't.
Yeah.
Right? But it's like, it's just like, and this is what the alcoholism tells you, right? That's easier. That's easier than like just calling my dad and like just letting him know where I'm actually at. And that's easier than like telling my friend why like I couldn't make it to like this one thing that he really needed me for or whatever it might be. It would be easier to just stay in my room, lock myself up, and shoot dope. Be like,
yeah, or that, and even other times, like I I know that, and we're going to get back to your story because
Yeah.
I want to see this journey because it's going to help me, and I know it's going to help someone that's listening to this.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful for you being here and
Thanks, man. I
being
appreciate
so
it.
open with your story.
Thank you.
That means a lot.
Man, it's
And-
great to be here.
Yeah, thank you. But I know that I missed, I went missing for 2 months.
Yeah.
And this was when I was maybe 23. And my best friend called and called and called and called. And finally I got a voicemail, and I had something like 80 voicemails, and this was the last one. Or it was the most recent one, but my mailbox was full. And he said, I can't believe you missed my wedding.
Yeah.
I can't believe my best man didn't show up.
Yeah.
And he went on for, I think it was 8 minutes, and that's what ate up all the voicemail time. But I just remember hearing that, and those 8 seconds of felt like eternity. I can't believe you missed my wedding. Can't believe my best man didn't show up. And I wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to put a dark cloud, the same dark cloud that was just continuously covering me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to put that on him and that special day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a dude I loved
Yeah.
and had only ever loved me.
Yeah.
And that I would have never in my life wanted to have hurt.
Right.
And I hurt him in the deepest, one of the most painful ways possible.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know if I'm alive.
Man.
Yeah. I mean, dude, it ripped me up. I attempted suicide after that.
Yeah.
And just thought, if I'm this guy, I'm going to hurt more people than I help.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm hurting everyone around me, the people I love, like what you said. You're the closest people.
And what's crazy is, to an audience, they're like, whoa, holy shit. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know exactly. I've been there a million, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to, what would it be? 17, 18, 19 years old?
Yeah. So that's like the first time I'm like really doing opiates. It was the most comfortable with myself I'd ever felt. It would be a really good way of describing it. Yeah, the high is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not going to like pretend that it was just like, oh, I was a crazy guy and now I wasn't. That's why I like heroin. You know what I mean? I loved the feeling.
Yeah.
Without doubt. And unfortunately, I had the means to continue doing it. And I don't know, like, we talk a lot about in recovery communities, like, about like nature versus nurture and like how it comes to be. And I think they're both equally important. And I can break it down a little further, but I think I was always an alcoholic and addict. I think that was predetermined. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The reason I think so is I started this story by telling you I watched all of these kids get addicted to Percocet, and I had the warnings all along the way. And from the second I took my first one, immediately there was zero thought of let's be smart. Let's space these out. Let's remember all the teachings of just your experiences in life along the way. I was selling drugs with a friend of mine, a really good buddy of mine to this day. We're both out the game. He's an amazing dude. And our whole thing was, because we had seen it rip so many people up in the festival scene, was we don't work with people who are junkies. And I'm the second I'm taking Percocet, I'm like, there's no reason for me to not do this the rest of my life.
Wow.
That's like just immediately cosmic shift in thinking.
I get that.
Yeah, dude, it's like
my first time drinking, I waited until I won my first national championship in wrestling.
Yeah.
It was a high school one, and I was so disciplined.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted me to drink at the parties after state championships,
Yeah.
All-American, all this stuff, and smoke pot, whatever. And I was like, no, I got stuff to do. I got stuff to do, and I'll reward myself whenever I get there. And so I won a championship like cup, like a trophy, right?
Yeah.
That you could fill it up with stuff.
Yeah. Right.
So we filled it up with vodka, and I thought I had 30 shots of vodka out of that the first night I ever had to drink. First time it ever hit my lips, I thought I had 30 shots, but it turns out that some of the adults around started filling up the bottle of vodka with water. So I actually only had 15 shots. And then they started like, oh shit, he's going to die of alcohol poisoning his first time ever drinking.
So you had your first, this is your first drink?
First drink ever.
You had your first drink. First of all, crazy story. Not like as crazy to me as other people. But You had your first drink in a championship trophy that you had received for all your hard work up to that point, including abstinence.
Yep.
I mean, that's like from a movie, right?
Yeah, I guess
You
so.
you couldn't draw a crazier
Yeah.
picture, right?
And after that, gone.
Gone.
I mean, I still did some stuff because I worked so hard to get there. And then I could, especially I switched from drinking to oxys.
Yeah.
Because I could train.
It's convenient.
It's convenient.
Yeah.
And it didn't affect my training as bad.
Yeah.
As I didn't have as much drive, but like I wasn't as hungover and wasn't as hurting as much. Well, I didn't feel pain.
Right.
And so And so going into sparring and stuff, I could do that.
That'd be so funny. Hey, you know what might help after the gym is OxyContin.
Right.
Yeah.
Dude, it was insane. It got to the point to where I was listen how crazy this is. This is the insanity that comes with the disease of alcoholism and addiction is I would start my skillet and to put egg whites in there. I would have from soaking it the night before, I was at least disciplined enough to do that, steel cut oats. So I could cook my steel cut oats and put in fresh berries or agave nectar, start up my smoothie and my Vitamix, and then I'm training in the UFC, and I'm starting up my vaporizer, I'm taking my oxys, and I'm drinking straight whiskey or vodka, and then I'm headed out the door to go spar. Yeah. Grown men training for world championship fights.
Amazing.
And but I'm making sure I'm eating healthy.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that, so I think I can do this too, or I just couldn't stop.
Yeah.
Once I started, I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't stop starting.
Right.
So, anyways, going back to your story, I really want to hear it. I just can relate so much.
No, but what you're talking about is so incredibly important, right? Because it's so just necessary. Because we're not promoting any one way of getting well,
for sure.
But it's just so important to at least talk about these stories of like, we have very different backgrounds. We have very different, like, just stories leading up to the point. And there's no one archetype that will suffer from alcoholism. You know what I mean? It's truly like the great true denominator.
Yeah. It can be any race, religion, color, creed, like anybody from anything socioeconomic background, like anything.
And you can't see it. Like sometimes sure it might be clear, but like your position, you're an elite athlete, and on the inside, a different guy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I've heard it one way where they say we all had different external circumstances, but we all had a very similar internal condition.
Yeah.
And that's the disease.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to think it was a disease.
Right.
I was like, that's bullshit. That's weak.
Yeah.
Like, if I can do this, fight this, or if I can do that, or if I can spin this plate and spin that plate and keep them spinning, like, I will figure out the way to defeat this.
Right.
And it was the insanity was I would go to get the best coaching in the world.
Yeah.
Whether it was for wrestling or boxing or kickboxing or jiu-jitsu, or even whenever I started the nonprofit, like started surrounding myself with mentors. When it came to recovery, there was so much shame wrapped around it, so much embarrassment, guilt, and self-condemnation.
Sure.
That I couldn't talk to anyone about it. And I couldn't ask for help. Or I wouldn't. And I definitely wouldn't seek coaching. Or like, or a tribe of like, I'm in these fight camps. I want to be around these fighters. And I just couldn't do that with recovery. I thought of like recovery scenes as like the old guys in a dilapidated basketball gym, the metal chair, smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee, and lifeless.
Yeah.
I was like, you can shoot me in the head before that's going to be my life.
Right. It's, I've always had a theory about like 12-step stuff is that the reason I didn't do it for so long is because somewhere deep down, I knew it worked. You know what I mean? It's like,
maybe that was me
somewhere deep down. I know I like, it's just, I'm not like married to the idea, but I'm just kind of hypothesized. I was like, why didn't I? I tried everything else. Not to fast forward, I'll get there. But to your point about like figuring out like you're doing so much, essentially to keep drinking, right?
Yeah. Get people off my back,
and
or
so
prove to myself I can do this and this. So I get to do that.
Yeah. I love the saying. Yeah, it's a problem when your drinking gets in the way of your work, but it's a real problem when your work gets in the way of your drinking.
I never heard that.
Yeah,
I never heard that.
That's because it's just like, oh fuck, I gotta see the kids.
Man. Oh, bro, you just reminded me on Kill Tony. Everyone's giving you a standing ovation,
Yeah.
And I think it was Tony or Brian Redban that goes, "What was better, that or heroin?"
I'm like, heroin.
Yeah. You're just like, your face was like, what? That's not even a question.
No question.
Oh, that's so crazy.
It's clear as day.
Yeah. What I love about your story, and we're going to go back and retrack, but brother, I think it's amazing that on your first appearance on Kill Tony, under a year, right at like 6, 7, 8 months of performing, I mean, he gave a great props. He goes, man, there's something that happens when some guys get sober. Yeah. Like guys like Tim Dillon or Theo Vaughn, and they just start crushing it like it's a new level.
Robert Kelly, Rich Voss, all amazing. What's Joe List? Just shouting out.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So I'm you know what I'm excited that you're on this podcast for? Because I'm going to be able to say, I got him on my show when it was just right after his first time. There you go. Dancing out. I love it. But no, I had you on the show, like on the early days. I got to see you, your first appearance. I got to see you still going and lining up to get a second shot at your name pulled out of the bucket. And then we crossed paths for a reason and a purpose, and I had this opening, so thanks. I was like, man, I'm excited to have Nat on. Yeah,
I appreciate that. I'm a big everything kind of falls into place how it's supposed to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not to get like too wishy-washy with it, but the big man, he's never wrong. You know what I mean? That's just my philosophy.
No, that's good, man. I'm great with that.
I seen a lady and one of the things say that specifically, and she pretty much just said that over and over again for like 10 minutes. And I'm not
again, the big man.
He's never wrong. You know what I mean? It's always exactly right.
Yeah.
And I don't always feel that way.
Right.
You know what I mean? It depends on how I'm doing and what I'm doing. But I found that to be true.
It's pretty neat to even think about nature, right? And how everything works.
Yeah.
You know, everything works.
It's amazing, dude. It works better than anything.
Yeah. It's like, it's all miracles.
Yeah.
From like the things that are living in the sea to the mountains to the... After my second suicide attempt, and we're getting back to your story.
No sweat.
After my second suicide attempt, I got to sit on the beach. I got trapped down in Mexico during COVID.
Yeah.
I went down there with a one-way ticket not to come back. And I've fallen back to addiction.
Yeah.
And had a surgery, hadn't been fighting. I got a divorce, COVID happened, and then I relapsed. And I was successful after the surgery, not going back to opiates except for the 4 weeks. And they were giving it to me for 8 weeks, and I got off of them early. But still, I think that physical allergy or that phenomenon of craving got set off again because of the surgery.
Yeah.
And so then I'm white knuckling it again.
Yeah.
And then all shit breaks loose, and I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. Peace. And it was 2 pilots, 4 flight attendants, and me on the plane. There was nobody else.
Yeah.
It was like the last flight that they took out of there. Everything was already shut down. Got trapped. Attempted to take my own life through overdose. A crazy amount of drugs. And like 5 oxy 80s. So that's 400 milligrams, which is like, what is that? 5 or 85 milligram pills.
Yeah.
A half to 3/4 of a bottle of tequila, a Sharpie size line of Coke, and just a bunch of other drugs.
Yeah.
5 Xanax, 2 milligrams.
Oh, dude, that's a death wish. You're starting to mix it.
Yeah, I was mixing it all because that was the purpose.
Yeah.
I'm going out. And when I woke up, like something like 16 hours later, I did at noon, woke up at 2 a.m. the next morning, and I did a gas. It was like, shit, I'm still here. Fuck, I'm alive.
Yeah.
I went out and I watched. I got in my clothes. I got into the water. It was outside like Playa del Carmen, Tulum area, and I went and got in the. I think I was in jeans, and I felt so bad. My heart felt like I was beating out of my chest, and I went and I got in the water, and I'm sitting there, and my knees are in the sand, and waves are washing over me, and they're pushing me back, and it just feels like waves of shame. Every single one of them, shame. More shame, and I'm talking down to myself, and then something in me was just like, be grateful. And I was like, my heart was beating out of my chest.
That's
I'm like,
crazy.
I'm grateful for this beating heart in my chest.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, I'm grateful for this breath in my lungs. And there was a whisper of something, universe, big man upstairs, God, that creative intelligence, that said, open your eyes. Or it was me, but it was like something, my intuitive spirit said, open your eyes. And when I did, the sun broke on the horizon at that exact time. And I watched the most majestic sunrise of my entire life. I'm partially colorblind, but I saw more colors. And it was like reds and blues and oranges and yellows and every wave after that, it was like, because the wave comes over you and then goes out, right? It was like a wave of gratitude coming over me and that shame kind of leaving, and another wave of gratitude and another one of shame leaving. And that was the moment I was like, I'm going to treatment. And
Amazing.
So man, I've had these moments where it's like, you know, the big man's never wrong. Like that masterpiece of a sunrise was painted, and I literally thought this in the water. I was like,
just for you,
just for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a second, this happens every day, morning and night, and it happens all over the world, and we all get to see it and witness it, and it's just like, whoa, thousands of these masterpieces, or millions of them, all around the globe.
I want to share with you one thing. So
Please do.
I've been recently, for really the first time ever, I've been getting back into like Judaism. I'm Jewish, but I never really practiced. Like, we were just pretty much Jewish, and that's it. And I've been studying with a rabbi for the first time in my life. It's been amazing.
Here in Austin?
Correct.
Cool. I'll come with you sometime.
Oh, it's the best.
I've never
dude.
been to a synagogue.
He'd love to have. He's the
Is
best.
that how we say it? Synagogue, tabernacle?
I'm trying to think if he wants to be plugged.
That's okay.
No, I'm just thinking. I think he would. It's the YJP, the Young Jewish Professional. Shouts out Mendy.
Cool.
Levertov, he's the man. I'm pretty sure he wants this. Anyway.
Okay.
I'll let you know. I'll text you before.
Sure.
But no, he's the man. You can check him out. YJP Austin.
Okay.
But
I'll come with you to check it out sometime.
Anytime. I was asking him specifically because I was really. We really get into it, and we study, and most of it's just talking, going back and forth, and it's such a valuable thing to have that kind of spiritual advisor around. And I asked him, like, what is like the specifically the Jewish perspective on like what like God's love looks like? Like, what is that? You know
That's
what
a great
I mean?
question.
Because it's like, I know what I feel, and I know like what I choose to believe has saved me, but just me. But I was like, I just want to hear this guy. Like, I mean, this guy's always happy. He's always got the most energy in the world. I see shit thrown at him and it falls off. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this dude's got what I want. Right. So I asked him, he's like, okay, imagine you have been trying to have a child your whole life and you can't, whatever. It's your fault. It's her fault. Doesn't matter what it is. It just hasn't happened. Right. And you're near the end of your life. You're like on your way out, right? And somehow your wife becomes pregnant and that child is born. And for the first time, all you've ever wanted was a child, right? And that child is you. Now take that love and multiply it by 1,000, and we're not even close to the number, right? And that experience is happening between you and God, and only you and God and nobody else, and everyone else on the whole planet at the exact same time. And I was just like just rocked by it. You know what I mean? Because he was like, it's just for you. It's just for you. It's your thing. And everybody else is separately and together at the same time. And I was like, dude, that rules. You know what I mean? I was like, that just rocks. Like I've shared it all over the place. It's just
That's cool to think about.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Something you should ask him about. There's this, I think it's a book, you probably know it, or of it, but it's like the Jewish Book of Legends. And there's someone named Yoni. And there's this principle behind basically prayer circles.
Yeah.
And there's this legend, but I guess it actually happened.
Yeah.
And it was in that time, like, I don't know, 400 years of silence and no prophets or anything like heard from God. And I forget who I heard sharing this, but basically there was a drought and people were dying in famine.
Yeah.
And this guy finally, everyone was saying, no one hears from God anymore. He stopped talking. And so he literally went and said, no, like the God that I think of or believe in isn't going to let everyone die off this face of the earth just from famine and no rain. So he went and grabbed a staff and he drew a circle in the sand and around himself. And he said, I am not leaving this circle until it rains.
Yeah.
And everyone thought he was crazy. And then all of a sudden it started raining. And he said something about, anyways, how it goes is huge raindrops come because he said it's going to rain like crazy. And it did. And then he edits it and kind of says, no, not like this. And then it was like kind of tiny raindrops. And then all of a sudden he edited his prayer again and said, you know what? I want rains that are going to like bless the grounds and the harvest so that it helps the children. So it doesn't flood. And so that's not enough to like help. And basically the principle behind it was something about like praying these big audacious dreams or prayers and like kind of circling around those, visualizing that this is what I want. And as they start to come to pass, like editing them and believing that like these things aren't just you say it once, like you can continue to like edit and grow it and get it better and
it's the evolution of faith.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I liked it. So ask him about Yoni.
I will.
I'm pretty sure it's Yoni. I might just be thinking that because he's over at Kill Tony.
That's right.
But
Shouts out Yoni.
Shout out Yoni. Best barbecue.
Yeah.
But I think it's Yoni the circle maker or something like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Really cool.
I don't know that story. That's awesome.
Ask him because I'm sure he's got a lot more wisdom than me just trying to remember it from years and years ago.
I love those guys. Like that's why it's so cool to like whatever your denomination or lack of, like whatever it is, just to have someone around like that to chat with, because they got the story for wherever you're at. You know what I mean? Like doesn't matter how unique of a thing you think you're dealing with, they'll tell you like a story.
Yeah, unique perspective. We need that because we need those like cosmic mirrors in our life that kind of show us a reflection of like who we are, how we can get better, everything else. Fightfortheforgotten.org. You can go check out Fight for the Forgotten, the foundation that I started. It is my passion project. It is something that I love so much because of the people we get to help. We get to help the pygmy tribe who adopted me in help themselves. We say opportunity is greater than charity. Charity can be great, but opportunity is just always better. That's why we've drilled something like 80 water wells already, providing over 30,000 people clean water. We've started sustainable farms, bought back over 3,000 acres of land for the people who originally owned it, put it in their name. We built 32 homes, and now we're about to start a health center, a school, and a marketplace. They're going to have a maternity ward, a pediatrics unit, and a dental suite. You can join the Fight for the Forgotten Fight Club at fightfortheforgotten.org. We would love, love, love to invite you on this journey to join this fight arm in arm with us. Our fight club, it's a monthly giving club. You can give $5 or more a month, and that empowers us to empower people. Thank you for being on this journey with us. I invite you to come along for the ride. It's been absolutely epic, putting love and compassion in action and fighting for people. Fightfortheforgotten.org. Join our fight club. So let's go back to your story because we haven't really dug into it of like the darkness.
The nitty.
Yeah.
So we left off, I just started, and immediately I'm like a daily user. And like pretty much everybody sees it. It's not like I'm having difficulty hiding it. But I just keep making money, and I just keep using. And, you know, I'd like tortured a couple girls into being my girlfriend. Not literally, but I mean, like I just feel awful for them that they had to be with me during this time. And you know, stuff's like coming and going, and everyone else is just kind of like continuing with life, and I'm like just kind of right here, and I'm pretty good with it for a while. And eventually I'm dating this girl, and the real big turn was like a breakup, and it really was not the breakup. It was just that like I had the opportunity to like be alone and like feel my thoughts like for one of the first times in a while, because like now I have like just like one thing to actually be sad about, and I've ignored my feelings for so long, because on paper I've got everything that I think I'm supposed to have. I've got the money, the girl's hot, the stuff's coming in, and I'm like high all the time, and I got buddies that I run around with and stuff like that. And my buddy Mason Smith, who was on that same Kill Tony, he's living with me. He knows all about all this stuff.
Great.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So he'll know all these stories. But he is watching this, and I break up with this girl, and then there was this real corner that was rounded right there where I was asked to no longer be living in my place where I was living. I just shared an apartment with some roommates because it was just too much trouble. Because one thing was that, and I'm sure you've heard about this, but when I would use, I'd have almost a reverse effect. Rather than just like nod out or whatever, I'd be like extra.
Yeah,
I'd be a lot.
that's me.
You know exactly. I'd be like hyper, and like sometimes it's great and like buddy and I'm funny, but a lot of times I'm like just kind of crazy, like making noise, like I need a lot from you, I'm shaking you, I'm jumping around, and if I'm really fucked up, I'm just like I just look crazy, you know what I mean? And like I just would get really dark, like I'd like just punch stuff and this and that, and like just I'd black out and like come to in like, you know, just torn up rooms and stuff like that. And it was just like a horror, like the last roommate you'd want, so they asked me not to live there anymore, and I ended up getting a room in like a boarding house, which is just like, you know, isolation to the max. And it's just me, all this money. And at that point, I was somewhere between 25 and 30 Percocet 30 milligrams a day. So it's like a multi-$1,000 a day habit.
Wow.
And so we're talking about like roughly 700, 900 milligrams of Percocet.
Wow. A day.
Correct.
Wow.
And so that specific period of like that intensity of use was maybe maxed out at 6 months. And that's when I first, like, that was the first time where I actually tried to stop, but it was like so half-assed. It was like I stopped, I experienced any degree of withdrawals for the first time, like just even the beginning of withdrawals. And I was like, fuck that. Like, I'll just keep going forever.
Withdrawals is torture.
It's the worst thing. And I eventually called my same buddy that I was hustling with. It was like my business partner, and he'd been living in South Carolina, Charleston at the time. And everyone knew about my using, but this was truly the first time that I called this guy, and I was like, it's really bad. I'm scared. You know what I mean? Like, I've been scared. I've been lonely. I've been like, I've had like no love for myself at all. Even like the simplest things have become difficult to do. Like I'm like, even the dealing is stopping because like just the thought of like kind of going outside and having to deal with people has now like really like mortified me. You know what I mean? The most simplest things. I remember like I'd be afraid to like go to the bathroom because I'd have to like bump into somebody along the way. You know what I mean? Like just, it was really bad. And I called this kid, and one of our buddies picked me up, and I like took just a shitload of Percocet. Like I don't even know how much, like 30, 40 of them. Jumped on a plane to South Carolina, and the plan was to just detox on my friend's couch. So that was the best idea we had. At this point, I'm maybe 21, something like that. And I experienced full blown a week of true coming off of like, you know, that let's say 800 milligrams a day, Percocet withdrawal, which, don't let anyone fool you, it's the same. It's the same. When you're kicking, it's the same as IV heroin. It's the same as, at this point, it's like, it was, I mean, just torture. You know what I mean? Like, no sleep, shitting yourself, manic episodes, like day nightmares. I'm unable to differentiate like my nightmares from reality, like disassociating, truly like just the worst like feeling you could imagine. That was the first time I experienced that. And it was crazy that like, my friend had really little experience like with any of this. So he's just watching me at like, turn into this animal. And so I was there. I somehow got through full withdrawals. And then like hung around for another few days. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I've really rounded a corner. Like I'm feeling a little bit physically better. I'm not like as sick as I was. And it's like time to go back to Boston and like keep making money and just like continuing living as I have. And as we know and have discussed in regards to like not changing anything other than stopping the drugs, nothing changed. I didn't change, like, I didn't establish any kind of healthy patterns. I didn't have any program recovery. And I think within 3 weeks I was back on. And then at that point, I quickly ran out of cash and proceeded to a couple of years that was essentially like there were no really big events other than it would be like use for a month, get broke, come up like with some kind of like scam, like lie to somebody, make a couple bucks, or like just get an odd job for a little while to like work up enough money to be high for a little bit, score like a Suboxone somewhere to like get, for those who don't know, Suboxone just assists with your withdrawal symptoms, and it really does essentially negate them. And it's got its own dangers, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah, getting hooked on that too.
It's very real. It's very real. And it's a very taboo subject within the recovery communities in general. Sure, the idea is like,
but negating it can help.
Listen, from my experience, I'll get to this when I get down. It's like, if you're like a real opiate addict, a real heroin addict, like I just like don't know how you're just gonna like completely kick. That was not my experience. Like I did have medication assisted recovery in the beginning of my very early recovery. I don't count it as like my sobriety date, but like that, like I wouldn't be here without it. So anyway, it's just like these years of just like kind of like pulling off some, like lying to somebody, lying to a parent, lying to a friend, stealing from friends, working a couple jobs, like living with one parent or the other, or crashing on a friend's couch, and just like this kind of like gray floating space of like withdrawing for a couple days, coming up on some money, getting either some Suboxone to feel a little better, just like this limbo of nothing is building. There's no good future in sight. There's no like signs of things starting to get actually better long term. It's just like one step forward, two steps back. Mm-hmm. For like really a couple of years.
Yeah, feeling of being in quicksand.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And it stayed there until, and then somewhere along the line, I like, it was pretty uneventful. Just like a friend of mine had heroin. I was doing the heroin. And then I was just like, well, it's cheaper and I'm doing the heroin. And if it was up to me, I would just do Percocet. They're a better drug. I mean, they feel better. It's really hard to get like pure heroin. But I just ended up on heroin, and in Boston at that point, it's like pretty much just fentanyl.
Wow.
And so then it's just that I'm like smoking it, I'm sniffing it. The one line is like not injecting it, right?
Right.
Then somewhere around like 23, maybe at the end of like 22, I was with a buddy. This was so crazy. I was doing, the job was like, I was working for a car dealership, cold calling previous clients that were either service clients or had bought their car there to try to get them to trade at business development, like try to trade in your car and I'll sell you a car on the way. Like there's some bullshit. And a buddy of mine who knew I like partied, this kid, I'd never seen anything like it. He was like 25 or something like that. And he liked to drink and do drugs. But within the like 2-3 months I was working there, he did his first Percocet and became an IV heroin user within 3 months. I'd never seen anything like it. And I remember talking to him about it and be like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is insane. And then eventually that same kid was the first guy who shot me up.
Wow.
You know what I mean? We're just hanging out and I was just like, dude, I'm sick and I don't have much. And I just want like the most for my money. Cause there was never any like wealth, right? Like there's no like actually having money. Let's just all go on to stuff.
Right.
And even if I came up on a little bit of cash, I just know it's not like I'm not holding on to it.
Yeah.
So then I'm IVing. That made it.
What's that for me? I mean, I mean, I'm also thinking about for the listeners, what's that like? But I had a moment that, so I was, when I relapsed, I was buying weed,
Mm-hmm.
and I can basically turn weed into oxy, just smoking enough of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, sure.
I could do 3 or 4 5 vape pens in one day.
Yeah.
Like the big, like 1 gram cartridges and stuff. It's with every inhale. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And
Right,
so, like,
right. I'm pretty much breathing weed.
Yeah. There was no oxygen. It was THC only.
Yeah.
And I went over and got this, and some people came into this house, and anyways, they were like stealing. What are those, like, robotic vacuums? Those
Roombas? Yeah. Oh, that's such a funny hustle.
Yeah. They were like stealing those and selling those for drug money. And I'm like, what are they doing? They're asking me if I want a Roomba. I'm like, no.
Dude, that's such a funny thing.
I mean, I was kind of like, well, how much? But at the same time, I'm like, no, I don't want to get, anyways. But I'm buying the weed, and then I start smelling the smell. I never had anyone offer me heroin from sniffing it, smoking it, anything like that. And I smell this smell. And the guy that was the weed dealer, anyways, like, he's selling me that. And this pretty attractive female walks out with this guy. And I guess they were cooking the heroin back there. Mm-hmm. And they have 3, they have 3 needles loaded up, which I guess is for probably the dealer and them 2. Mm-hmm. But she looked at me, and I looked at it, and I guess she saw a look on my eyes, in my eyes. And so she offered me, and I go, no, I've never done that. And when I said, no, I never done that, she got giddy. And he also goes, oh, she loves shooting people up for the first time. Loves it. She's like, please, 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 it's going to be so great. Have you ever had it? And I'm like, no, I'm an oxy guy.
Yeah.
She was all, wait till you feel this, and wanted to shoot me up. The dealer, miracle moment in my life, dealer grabbed me by the shirt. Like, as if almost like the cartoon or the bully in the movie, like, pulled me up by the shirt as much as he could, which he couldn't lift me, but he was like pulling me up by the shirt and turned me around, said, you get the fuck out of here.
Fuck yeah.
He goes, I
got goosebumps.
Yeah, he's like, anyways, he said, I know some of the stuff you do. Get the fuck out of here. You're going to die from this. Go now. And I left there, and I just remember thinking, like, that guy might have saved my life.
Oh, yeah.
He probably saved my life, because I don't do things like halfway.
Yeah.
Like, anyone that's ever around me, no matter who it is, say they've never seen anyone that can consume as much as I do.
Right.
And
of anything.
And
the first time we hung out, you're like, yo, let's go smash like 12 pints of ice cream.
yeah, that's right.
Which,
that's
by the way,
was excellent.
No, dude, like, Jenny's is the best. But I think this was before New Year's, right?
Yeah.
And I was not eating ice cream for all of 2021.
Oh yeah.
I had some in 2022 to see if I could, like, just healthily. I can't count how many pints I've had in 20. It's
I'm sorry.
A huge problem. Anyway, keep going. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No.
No, but I introduced Nat to the world's best ice cream, Ginny's ice cream, and
it's incredible.
But it is, and dude, I remember they saved my life. But what is that like for someone that I'm in a good place now.
Sure.
I just went out on 100 Days Sober, went partying sober on roller skates and had a blast.
Fantastic. It's so I can say that I you're kind of just chasing, like, first of all, like, being well, and you're always chasing, like, that same high as the first time, and you don't really get it, but IVing, you do get, like, that first time again. So for someone who'd been an addict for so long, it was almost like to come back to that place of really, like, genuine, like, oh, like, that one thing that really felt like it, like, saved my life. Like, I can't believe I'm, like, feeling this again. For people who have no experience with opiates, or just mild, it's and this is just my experience. 'Cause everyone has a different one. Some people just don't like opiates. Which when you tell me that, I think you're a fucking alien.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, you're out of your mind. Yeah, like my mom will be like, I just didn't like I didn't feel like I was in control, and I didn't like that. And I'm like, you're insane. Yeah, like
Some people say it makes their skin crawl. I'm like, what are you talking about?
That's
like,
great.
This is
Yeah. But like your whole body, your whole body feels amazing. It's like really akin to like an orgasm, you could say. Like it's
like a full body orgasm.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. It's like it's like I used to do this bit, but it was getting a little close to this other guy's bit, so I retired it. But it's like warm honey. Is your blood is replaced with like warm honey. You know what I mean? Your whole body. Like, oh my god! Like it's crazy. Actually, there's a really good scene in in the sequel to that movie we were talking about, Trainspotting 2, where they shoot up, these guys relapse, and they play this really intense music, and it gets kind of like the colors change in the film, and it becomes almost abstract. And I remember vividly thinking, I was like, oh yeah, that is like, I couldn't believe that they had captured so well, like the overall feeling of like a shot of dope. Between the sound and the visuals, they had really, watch the relapse scene in Trainspotting 2.
Okay.
That's the best I could describe shooting up as.
Okay. I'll go watch that.
Yeah, it's like, it's pretty close. So I do that, and it's just like, again, just like with everything else, there's no thought of doing anything else, right? I'm not like, oh, okay, that was fun, now I'm going to go back to sniffing it. And it gets really bad really quickly. I think when you start IVing, I think, it's at least I'm just like thinking, my hypothesis, like, then you can really start to see like the physical, like it starts to show up on you a little more, because it's just like direct to the system. And
I've had a time in Africa where I had malaria and my veins were collapsing because of dehydration and stuff.
Man.
But I've seen guys at treatment with track marks and things like that. Like, have you experienced that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I had tracks. They were
you
like
bust through veins and lots of pain.
Pretty quickly, like I ruined a couple of my veins. I had to have friends like help me find them in weird places. I was always a chubby guy, so it was nowhere near as easy for me to find a vein. Like I would do it, I'd figure it out. But then this is the craziest thing. If you miss a shot, right, which is you think you have your vein, and then maybe it misplaces, and then you just shoot like into your body, you just create an abscess, and like, you know what I mean? You just create it hurts.
Ouch.
Because you just have this intense pressure that's not supposed to be in your body. And now there's just like a mass of heroin and water in your body. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's going to be an infection and a cyst. But all you're thinking is, I wasted heroin.
Yeah.
All you're thinking about is like, oh, now I'm going to be sick. Or I'm down however much money that was. Like, no, I'm like, well, I'll deal with that. But now, me not having the heroin's the worst thing.
Yeah, meaning dope sick. Meaning
Correct.
Like you'll go through the withdrawals.
Correct.
Wow.
I can't, dude. I remember being, because you're so first of all, you're in active addiction. Your whole brain is fried. You're just not operating on the same plane as other people. You're scared. You're paranoid. Your emotions are all out of whack. You haven't been developing where other people have been in like your either formative years or wherever you're at. So it's like, I just remember being like so angry and so mad already. And I'm just like, all I'm trying to do is feel a little better by taking this shot. And I missed. And that would be like that might be the angriest I've ever been. You know what I mean? Not like so many other things are happening. I'm like,
already fucked up. Now I just fucked up even more.
Yeah.
Can't get anything right.
Yeah. I remember just being like pulling my hair. You know what I mean? And it's not, and I'm not feeling that way about that I haven't talked to my dad in 2 weeks, who's done like nothing but support me. You know what I mean? I'm not thinking about the fact that like I've screwed over all my best friends. I don't sound like a broken record, but I'm not even thinking about that shit. Because the addiction won't let me. Because if I do think about it, maybe I'll think about getting well. But it won't. But I don't think about it. I'm just worried about me right now. Self-centered to the core, right? To the core. So deep. So it's really bad at this point. At this point, what it looks like is I'm really just scraping by. I was living with another dope junkie, and I was really sick this one day, and I asked him for some stuff because he just had some, and he was like, "Go beg," and I was like, "No, I don't do that." And he's like, "What do you do when you're sick?" And I'm like, "I'm sick. Maybe I figure something out. Maybe call someone gives us money or steal something or like whatever." He's like, "No, you got to beg." Like taught me how to beg. So I remember being like, I'm living in this like shitty apartment in on Route 9 in Brookline, Massachusetts, on the corner of Brookline and Newton, Massachusetts, which, if you know, they're affluent neighborhoods. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not in the hood. You know what I mean? Like, my parents are paying for my room. They thought it wasn't going to go like that because I had a job when I first got it, but that's gone immediately. You know what I mean? "Oh, Dad, something came up." Like, you know what I mean? And they're just like, "God damn." And so I'm having like my basic necessities met through support. And then I'm going to beg on the corner in front of my house.
Wow.
With like, and I like a piece of shit. I'm fucking putting like dirt on my face to look dirtier.
Wow.
Cutting holes in my shirt and shit. Like, disgusting, right? Disgusting behavior. I'm saying shit like this. I think at one point I said like I was a veteran. Like, just disgusting behavior. You know what I mean? And like, again, I didn't think twice about it.
Yeah. But something you would never do sober. I mean, like in this, like,
you know what I mean, like
drugs in your system.
Wouldn't even
without that darkness kind of, I don't know, calling out to you. Right. I've heard it said like when that calls, you answer.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's number one guy. And so, you know, those kind of behaviors continue. I remember this one time. It's sort of a funny story for like other addicts, alcoholics, maybe not. But me and this kid, the kid who shot me up for the first time, we had this idea for a scam. Trying to think if I'm like getting anybody in trouble here. I don't think so. I think we're well past the time, and I haven't said the kid's name. But this kid somehow came about. This guy somehow came about this information. There's a company that used to deliver meat, and it was apparently
I like meat.
Yeah, we all like meat.
Yeah,
and they're a cash business, right?
Okay.
And it had somehow come into the information of what their roots were, right? And so our plan was to rob the meat truck driver, right? Because apparently they carry like big stacks of cash. They drop off meat, pick up cash from whoever, and that. My friend, who was like significantly more of like a tough guy than me, like I'm playing getaway driver. We pull up. He puts on a balaclava. He has a gun, and he goes to attempt to rob this meat truck. And he goes around this corner. He's like, "We don't want the car to be in the same. If the camera picked me up, I'm going to run around the corner, and then we're going to drive away with this money." So he goes and do that, and it's high octane. I'm freaking out. I'm not like, it's not second nature to me. I'm not that guy by any means. You know what I mean? I've done like some shit, but I'm not this dude that I'm just like, I'm going to go get it. Like, that's just not me. You know what I mean? I'm like literally like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And in the back of my head, I'm like, big score, lots of dope. I'm not going to be sick for a couple weeks, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, hell yeah, holy shit. And I'm holding on. This kid runs there. He comes back. No balaclava, no money, no gun, face covered in blood.
Oh, shit. Got his ass whooped.
He jumps in the car, and I was like, "Did you get it?" And he's like, "No, I didn't fucking get it. They kicked the shit out of me, dude." He put the gun in the window. The guy cracks the gun out.
Wow.
And like kicked the door out of him and proceeded to beat the shit.
Wow.
I, like beat my friend's out. He banged him up.
Wow.
Like put the mitts on him.
Don't go after the meat truck driver.
And then I'm like, "So you didn't get the money?" Like, what the hell? I'm like, what the fuck? Now I'm sick again. It's like,
oh man,
crazy. Rinse, repeat.
Yeah,
right?
Rinse, repeat. So what got you sober, man?
Yeah. So we're right around the end there. So this continues for some time.
Yeah.
And by
the way, wild story.
Crazy. So really, and I say this all the time because this was just what I was feeling when I got sober was, what I had been experienced for at this point a couple years was that any glimmer of hope was gone. Was truly like what it was more like there'd been a lot of bad things that happened, bad things that I'd done, and things I felt shame for. But it was more so that for a matter of years at this point, it didn't matter if I had enough stuff like for the next morning or even for the next week for that matter. Every morning I woke up, I didn't want to wake up, and I had nothing to look forward to. So even if there was like some girl that I had convinced to come over and I was like maybe going to get laid, which like never really happened anymore, you know. Or even if maybe once in a blue fucking moon I'd like end up at a concert or something like that. I just never looked forward to it. Like there's just nothing that was filling me up. And it was just dark, dude. My world was so small. I was in this tiny little apartment. I was pissing in a bucket. You know what I mean? Like, because again, afraid to go to the bathroom. I was so scared. And I just been feeling that way for so long that it was like, I can't, and again, a thing they say is like, I can't imagine going on like this. This isn't life. And it hasn't been for so long. But I'm just like, maybe just like somewhat ready enough to like think that or feel that or whatever. And I've been so scared. I can't imagine going on like this. And I also can't imagine changing. I just don't know what to do. And you have to understand that at this point, and I haven't really got into it because it never stuck, was I had tried to get sober. But it would be like, okay, I'm just going to smoke weed. That would last like 2 days. I'm going to go cold turkey and then take acid because it's a spiritual thing and whatever. And I just end up back on dope fast, like so fast. It was super futile at times. I'm going to try getting into yoga. I'm going to try this and this and that. I'm going to try and get into lifting, like whatever. Like, first of all, nothing stuck. And second of all, nothing kept me sober. I couldn't do it. I couldn't get sober. And if I could for a second, I wouldn't stay. So things had just been so miserable, so miserable that my buddy who had floated the idea of like 12-step stuff to me, who was from our hometown and he'd been like the first junkie and the first guy that got sober. He's not today. That's just how this thing works sometimes. I asked him and I was like, and this is just one guy talking to another guy, but he was like, yeah, man, like you can go to rehab or detox and you can end up like you can do like IOP stuff after that. And like if you really need it in the beginning, you might want to consider medication assisted recovery for the beginning. But where I found like any kind of actual success were 12-step meetings. And you know, I checked it out. I hated it. People were very kind and I hated that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People were like very excited to see me. And I was like, you have no idea, right? You don't know who I am. And I've like come to find like they know who I am way better than I do. You know what I mean? Like they're so like, you know, but it was just so bad for so long, so scary, so joyless, so hopeless, and just so dark and small that I was the only thing that changed was I was willing to take a suggestion from someone who had been there. Because at that point, I was getting my fucking sobriety advice from people who weren't sober, just like my buddies or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I did that a lot.
You know, like, so the crazy idea came to mind. I was like, if I'm trying to change something, maybe I'll ask someone who did.
Yeah.
And that was just like a novel idea somehow. And we talk about like the ins and outs of it. It's like, that's what I really believe. That's why it's like, if I really wanted to try to get sober, I would have at that point. And I just, as much as it feels like, no, I really tried. I swore thousands of times, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep hurting people. I can't keep waking up like this. I can't keep doing this to myself. I can't keep doing this to others. I'm not a promise breaker. I'm not a loser. I'm supposed to be doing more. It doesn't matter how many times I said it. How much, do you want to stay sober? Yeah, I'm lying and I don't even know it. And so whatever happened, man, I just, at that point, took the suggestion. And, like, I was kind of, you know, I took my time with it. It wasn't like it just all stuck. Like, I'd go to a meeting every now and then and just keep fucking up and, like, make up these little rules and games for myself and keep fucking up. And shit kept happening. I can tell you specifically the first time that I really understood what we talk about as a step one, which was really scary. But I had a couple months removed from drugs and alcohol, and I was on Suboxone. And I was going to meetings, and I had a sponsor. And I was like meeting with him a little bit, but I was being like disingenuous about a lot of stuff. And I was still selling drugs, and I was still doing all like other stuff because I like got back into that trying to. And I did in the beginning of my sobriety, I kept doing that, which I just really wouldn't recommend. It really was incredibly painful to be sober and still doing non-sober things. And I'm not knocking drug dealing. Like go sell drugs. Just for me as someone who's like trying to be well spiritually, it doesn't work if you're like going to a meeting, hanging out with your sober buddies, getting a text being like, I gotta go. And they're like, where you gotta go? And I'm like, don't worry about it. Like that's not gonna work. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, anyway, what I was saying is I had a couple months, and I had weaned myself off of my Suboxone because I really didn't want to end up like I had a lot of buddies that were just like lifelong Suboxone addicts at this point, and that was like the medical recommendation, right? They're like, well, now you're just on Suboxone. It's like taking a nail out of your foot that you stepped in and replacing it with a screw. You know what I mean? That's just my opinion. Again, it's people really have plenty of opinions. I'm not saying mine's right, but I had a couple months removed from drugs and alcohol. Like I said, at that point, I was calling it sober. I don't today. But I weaned myself off of the Suboxone. I was maybe like 2 weeks off of any Suboxone. I'd like slowly lowered my dosage with the advisory of like some close friends and medical professionals, close friends that had been there. And I was staying at my grandmother's house because the place I had a lease at, there's active addicts living there. Man, and I was honestly pretty stoked about life, right? And I woke up in the middle of the night. And I'd never needed to use so bad. Sober, like, actually sober, like a couple weeks, and just not ready to like really let it go. And I woke up in the middle of the night. I remember I took out my phone. I was like about to call like one of my guys that for some reason I still had the number. And I'm like, nah, you can't do that. And then I called my sponsor, and it's the middle of the night. Like, he didn't pick up. And he doesn't need, that's not his job.
Yeah.
And I called a sober buddy. He didn't pick up. And then I tried to pray. And I prayed for like 10 seconds, and then I called the guy, and then I hung up. And then I called my old roommate because the guy didn't pick up on a couple rings, and he didn't pick up. And I'm going, and I'm going, and I'm going. I'm trying to pray. I'm trying to call my sponsor. Trying to call a sober buddy. Trying to call the guy. Just Russian roulette. And eventually my old roommate picks up. And even he, when I'm like, listen, man, I got to get well. And he's like, what are you talking about? I thought you had a couple months. I was like, dude, I don't know. I got to. And he's like, man, I can't help you. And I was like, look, man, you can either open the door when I come through because I'm coming through, or I can just go to Mass Ave, which is the intersection of Massachusetts Avenue and Melnia Cass Boulevard in downtown Boston, which is like ground zero for drug addiction. It's as bad, if not worse, than the homeless situation's ever been in downtown Austin. It's horrifying. And it's really heartbreaking. I'm either going to go there and get burned a couple times, get my ass kicked, but I'm going to get what I need. Like, that's where I'm at. And he was like, fuck, dude, like, come through. And I called an Uber. It's like a 15-minute Uber. And not even by the point I relapsed. In this Uber, walking out of my grandma's place, everyone was so happy that I was really trying to get well. Everyone was so proud. And I was excited, maybe just a little bit for like maybe the first time that things were starting to get like just a tiny, tiny bit better. I'm like literally crashing on a couch in my grandma's. Man, and I needed it so bad. And I'm in the Uber and I'm just crying. And I hadn't even picked up yet, but the decision had been made. And I couldn't, there was nothing, me, like Nat, just the guy, there was nothing I could do about it. There's nothing, it was in the cards. Man, and that feeling, the way I was crying, I don't know ever when I've cried like that. I didn't cry like that when I've lost friends and family like that. I recognized, that was the first time I really got it. I was like, oh, I'm really different from other people. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not
powerless.
Powerless, truly.
Yeah, it held the power over you.
That was it. That feeling of, it's not just that when I do pick up, it's bad, because we get that part. That's easy to understand. It's if I'm left up to my own devices, anything on this plane of existence, I'm gonna. And that was the first time I ever got that. And then I went on the worst run, just 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks were worse because we talk about it only gets worse.
Yeah.
Those 2 weeks were like, dude, it was like, I can't even imagine. Like I wouldn't wish this on any person who's ever done the worst monstrosities. I wouldn't. The feeling was beyond hell.
Yeah, living hell or beyond.
Literally.
Wow.
And some people from the meeting showed up. They just showed up. I made like a couple calls when I was fucked up, just crazy babbling, and they fucking showed up and they dumped my shit and they dragged me to a meeting high off my ass. There's people that might be listening that were at this. They know what I'm talking about.
Wow.
I was jumping on people's backs and they didn't kick me out because we don't do that. You know what I mean? And I just returned to my sponsor and I was like, dude, you just tell me what to do. And that was it. And I don't know what changed. Like, I don't know if all it was that I just had to experience that to really get like just how licked I am. But that was it. I never looked back. At that point, I was like, bro, you tell me to do push-ups, I'm doing push-ups. You tell me to do jumping jacks, I'm doing jumping jacks. You tell me, man. It's not me anymore. You tell me. And then what he proceeded to teach me as we all come in, he was like, it's not me either. I'm just happy to help you get there. You know what I mean?
Wow. I think that's something really powerful. And thank you for sharing, man. This is powerful, man. I think what's been so cool about the judgment I had against 12-step programs.
Yeah.
And then like experiencing it the first time where I was half-assing it.
Yeah.
And this time like actually doing it. Like for instance, like a 5th step, a lot of times is 5, 6, 7, 8 hours for somebody.
Yeah.
I've now done 8 different times of it on just this one 5th step.
Yeah.
A rolling 5th step. And my sponsor has been there with me for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours at a time, 8 different times in a row, just selflessly giving me his all. Yeah. And I'm like, every time I'm like, thank you. And he turns it around and says, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Thank me. He goes, I'm just getting to give the gift that was given to me, man.
100%.
And he's lost like 48 people to this disease.
Yeah.
48 people. Yeah. He's lost them. And he's talking about close friends, family. And he's been through it. And so like he says, look, if you're willing, like I'm here. And that's what's been crazy because I used to, and the other guys that have been helping me. Anyways, the thing that I think was I thought people would like, that I could just do it half-assed, or I think they thought that I thought they would chase me or something, but like now it's like, no, I need this. I need it. Right. I gotta have it. Because like this thing can kill me, can and will if I don't do this.
100%.
So in kind of closing, the last like 5-10 minutes, what do you think, like this podcast is called Overcome. Yeah. And I named it that before I had this real understanding of addiction. That is like, addiction is always going to be in a process of overcoming. Right. Not that you have totally overcome it. Right. But I think there's an interesting perspective of like the difference between being cured and recovered. Yeah. And like it's a broken bone, it heals stronger than before. Yeah. But it doesn't mean it can't be broken again. Right. And so I feel that like charged up, strengthened, but I know that I got to protect it and broken. But for you now, you're close to 5 years sober. Yeah. You are a rising star in the comedy scene. I'll say that for you. Thank you. Because you are.
That's very kind.
You are, man. It's epic to watch and to see you and to know you. Like it's special. Yeah. And that's a gift that's been given to you in this life of sobriety, recovery. Yeah. But what does overcoming to you mean? And then what are you going to do in this life of recovery or overcoming? Like what opportunities has this opened up to you?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, you get sober, you get your life, you know what I mean? And one of the things that people don't get is like, you learn who you are for really the first time, I think. Because I might have had a value system before, but like it didn't really do anything for me. So in terms of, I mean, you really hit the nail on the head is that, and it's so crazy. It doesn't make sense for, I think, a lot of people that either haven't been through what we've been through or like just haven't arrived at some kind of a spiritual solution on their own terms. Is like you're talking about your sponsor sitting with you for your fifth step is like, and like you're doing through your own work and like what we do at the meetings and stuff is like, when you give it back to somebody else, like everything else works out. So in terms of overcoming, there's like the really literal way of looking at it, right? It's like, here's the problem and I can like pick myself up by my bootstraps and overcome that problem. But as you know, we almost look at it a little differently. Where it's like, the problem's me, right? And the only way I have found personally to fix that problem is to forget about that and see what I can do for somebody else. And that's why you'll hear anyone who's like worth their salt in a recovery community of any nature will tell you the greatest gift is sticking around long enough that you can either help someone or just watch someone else's lights turn on. Just that first glimmer of hope. Because that takes a little time. It was like just that kid that came in angry like me and mad, and he didn't believe in you guys. He didn't believe you knew how he felt. He didn't believe this thing would work for sure. And then he just came around and like accepted a little bit of this love that we give. And all of a sudden, dude, his shoulders just drop a little bit. And he's sitting in his seat. And then you watch him laugh, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, you know what I mean? You watch a kid and you crack him up. And because you can't really laugh unless you're well. You can laugh, but then it goes back to the dark right away. I was just talking about this the other way. So if I can give back in any way, the problems just go away. And I remember thinking like, okay, I got to get X, Y, and Z now that I'm like a little well. And every time I thought like that, it went bad.
Yeah.
It just so quickly went bad, you know? And I keep saying, and it just happens, you know? But in terms of like overcoming, like really the problems in here, and the number one solution is that service portion of this thing.
Right.
And so I ask myself in my daily prayers, it's like, how can I best be of service to my brothers? You know what I mean? And I ask to be presented with opportunities to be of service and then to act upon them when they're presented. And there's a lot of me throughout the day. Like, you know, I'm a freaking stand-up comic. Like, it's literally an egomania competition, right? But if I'm just like checking box X, Y, and Z in regards to like, call that guy, check up on this dude, make sure that you're there for people at the meetings, you know what I mean? Like, check up with my buddies in recovery at home, tell somebody I love them today, you know what I mean? Whatever it might be. All the other stuff that people get lost in, like, it just works out like magic. And you can call it perspective, you can call it a spiritual experience, you can like call it whatever you want, but it's just like, man, I keep doing the stuff that's worked so far because it's worked so far. Because we're addicts through and through. We don't do shit unless it feels good.
Yeah.
And that's still true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I've just been so blessed to learn that there's nothing that feels better than, and I think I talked about it with you earlier. It was like, I was stoked. I had a great Kill Tony and it was so much fun. And two things happened, one after the other. I felt really good. I was elated. People were showing adoration. I had to run to the bathroom to pray for humility because I was like, this is not going to go well if I just take it for face value. So I immediately prayed for humility. That's where I went to the bathroom, where I fucking met you, right? Then introduced to fellow members of the recovery community in that same interaction. So I pray for humility. I get opportunities to be of service in the same interaction.
Right.
I go back to the bullpen and I watch my friend Mason Smith go crush it. And now I can really celebrate. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I don't have to worry about me because now I can just love my friend.
Yeah. That's epic, man.
The full circle.
Full circle. I love that because we got to connect because you shared what you shared up on stage.
Yeah.
I was drawn to you. Chris was drawn to you. Our buddy Scott was drawn to you. Guys that all want to be comedians.
Yeah.
And I just want to see you guys thrive, man.
Yeah.
It's
man.
awesome. And to wrap this up, I don't know if you can riff on this because we're about out of time, but kind of the tagline of this, and maybe you have something to say towards someone that might be listening to this and feel like they're in a sort of hopeless spot.
Yeah.
Or maybe the stuff they've been running and gunning for, whether it's through drugs or just through the grind, that it's not really full of purpose.
Right.
And so they feel a little empty.
Yeah.
We kind of wrapping this up, I always say, you, me, we have overcome 100% of our darkest days.
Yep.
And for me, escaping death twice because of this addiction, you escaping death for the last 5 years. I don't know, just turning it over to you.
Yeah, man, if you're struggling, listen, one thing that happens is when you're struggling with anything, it's hard to see the light. It's not clear. It's a real challenge. And if just through listening to this, I've instilled any degree of hope, which is why I'm on. I'm honest, not because I just want to flex. I'm honest because you never know who you're going to help. Like you just talked about, the cards fell and we met each other and things happened. All I know is that I did not think that not just a good life, but any kind of better life was possible. I just didn't see it getting any better, and I didn't believe it could. I let go just for a second. I just asked somebody for help, someone who'd been there, and there's a lot of great people out there, and you know where to find them. All I did, things got, man, I couldn't ask for anything. I couldn't ask for anything. My cup runneth over. And all I did was get out of my own way just for a second. It got better than I didn't think it would work. And it just worked better than you can't explain to somebody truly, fully, it's so much better than I ever thought it could be.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
Even on the bad days.
Wow, it's powerful. 3 of the most dangerous words, I got this.
Oh.
3 of the most empowering words or powerful words are, I need help.
Yeah.
And where can people find you?
Yeah, so
Instagram, nat.comedian?
Nat.comedian, exactly. And I post all the
At
shows.
Nat. I like that.
Yeah, that's right.
At Nat.
Yeah.
That's an easy way to remember it.
At
nat.comedian.
That's right. That's me. And I post, all my shows on there. I produce a couple shows around Austin now that I'll be performing on as well. So if you want to show support that way, hopefully got all kinds of other content coming. Who knows? Maybe merch down the pipeline, but that's not a thing yet.
Yeah.
But man, I'm just
to go see you on your kind of breakout performance.
Yes.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's probably Spotify and Apple as well, but it's Kill Tony 528 or 526.
I believe so.
I think it's 528. And it is 528.
Yep.
And he's about 46 minutes in, I believe. The whole thing's killer. So
thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful you were here. Maybe we can do it
me.
again some other time.
Anytime.
And I'm really grateful for the human being you are. I know that your gift, man, of comedy is going to bless the world. It's going to make people laugh. My cheeks were hurting. But man, just the dude that you are, the people that you help. It's pretty amazing to meet people that are altruistic in a way that the word altruism to me is kind of to just do the next right thing without expecting anything in return.
That's it.
Just because it's the right thing.
That's it, man.
And it's pretty contagious. So thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you kindly, man. It was awesome to be here. Truly.
Appreciate you, brother. Wow. I hope you really enjoyed that episode of Overcome with Justin Wren with Nat Rogachevsky. That guy is on an upward trajectory to being a comedy legend. I honestly think that. I've seen his work ethic. I've seen how bad he wants it. He's made the move from Boston to Austin. And I hope you laughed out loud during this episode, just like I did while it was live. Man, Nat is a killer dude. What a story of overcoming. That is powerful. It's profound. He was so raw, real, open, and I guess just vulnerable. And for me, being vulnerable I used to think it was a sign of weakness, but now I think it is a sign of true strength. And that's for me, I am in the process of overcoming my addiction. I just think that is the one and only way to overcome. And if you want to support this show, please support our sponsors on nat.com/overcome. Save yourself some money. And also to support this show, the best way you can do that, and we've got a giveaway, is to leave us a review. You can leave us a review on Spotify now, and you can rate it, review it, and follow or subscribe to the show, or on Apple Podcast. If you leave us a 5-star or leave us an honest review, give us your feedback. We would love that. It would help us grow this show and know what you like, how we can make the show better. And we exist to serve you and build this into one of the most meaningful podcasts in the world. And for a giveaway, we're giving away $25 gift cards to Amazon, also to the sponsor of the show, Onnit. And we're also going to give away a $100 gift card from one of our past guests, Matt Vincent. If you missed that episode, please go back and listen. It's incredible. He is a 2-time world champion in the Scottish Highland Games. In his company, he's a serial entrepreneur, and his company, Hate Brand Goods. Honestly, some of the most comfortable shorts. One of my favorite pairs of shorts I've ever owned is from Hate Brand Goods, and their bag, their duffel bag. I think it is my favorite duffel bag I've ever owned for training. And so he's giving away a $100 gift card to someone that leaves a review on Spotify or Apple for us. It's going to help this show grow into one of the most meaningful podcasts in the world. Again, thank you so much. We couldn't do this without you. I love you guys, truly, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here and supporting the show.
Hey, don't forget to send your Overcome stories to overcomepodcast@gmail.com. And also, rate, review, subscribe, and follow Overcome with Justin Wren.